From the studios of Staten Island Community Television, you're watching In the Bleachers, the TV show for the world's most passionate sports fans. Hello, everyone. I'm the official team psychiatrist of the New York Yankees, also known as Jaime Hixson. We're very happy that you could join us this evening. We're supposed to be waiting word on whether Hector's going to be joining us or not. Hector's actually in night school right now over at CSI. But he said that he would try and make it out of class early enough to try and join us. So in the meantime, I want to let you know that you can still see some past shows of ours on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. So in case you miss an episode, you can watch a past one through one of those avenues, and we would love to get your support. Well, folks, unfortunately, the season has come to a colossal disappointment of an end for the Yankees. Not only did they lose Game 6 of the ALCS to the Astros, they fell back into some very, very bad habits that cost them Games 2, 3, and 4 of that series. And that is not getting the big hit with men on base when they were supposed to. And to complicate matters, their bullpen was just as disappointing as the Yankee hitters were at the plate. If you want to look any further, look no further than maybe Game 3. That was probably the turning point of the series. The Astros got out to a quick lead. They led 4-1. And Didi Gregorius had a chance to tie the game and just came up short of the wall with a 3-run home run. And then after that, that's when things started to snowball for them. Game 2 was the one series where things could have turned in their favor, but after Aaron Judge's 2-run homer, they could not find any way of trying to hit Justin Verlander, who, in spite of the couple of losses that he's had in these playoffs, has pitched much better than the people give him credit for. Then there was Game 6 when they fell behind the 8-ball once again, and then LeMahieu's 2-run home run actually gave them some hope, but then Jose Altuve, all 5 feet 6 inches of him, who you never would mistake for Babe Ruth, winds up winning the game and the pennant with that 2-run home run of his. And now, as the Astros get ready for the World Series against the Nationals, the Yankees have to lick their wounds and wonder what's going to happen with their franchise and with their roster next season. Because there's still a couple of guys that are going to be up for contract renewals, one of which is Didi Gregorius, a kid who missed half the year because he was hurt, but when he did return, was a very, very productive player, especially power-wise. There's also the matter of Brett Gardner, who's also going to be a free agent. He's coming off a 1-year deal. Who saw Brett Gardner supply the power that he did during this season? There's also the matter of Aroldis Chapman, their closer, who gave up that big home run to Altuve in Game 6. There's the issue of who the Yankee closer is going to be next year. Is it going to be Chapman or is it going to be somebody else? And there's also the matter of some of the guys that missed the majority of the year, like Aaron Hicks and Dylan Betances. What's going to be of these guys? Are they going to be healthy enough to try and make a contribution next year? Hicks has an elbow injury. He made it loud and clear he's not getting Tommy John surgery. He's going to play in spite of the tear in his elbow. As far as Betances is concerned, he didn't pitch practically the entire season. We're a little worried whether he's going to be losing some mileage on his fastball. And if he does, is he going to be the same guy as we knew him to be in the last few years? There is so much to ponder about this Yankee season. While their regular season really took people by surprise because of the number of people that wound up getting hurt, Their playoff was a bitter, bitter disappointment. So now, excuse me, the Yankees have a lot of work to do to try and better the result that they had this October. There's a lot of talk about whether the Yankees should try and go after Garrett Cole, because Garrett Cole is going to be a free agent once the World Series ends. It would definitely not hurt them, but only getting Garrett Cole by himself is not going to solve matters. If anything, I think it's going to take a little bit more manpower than just Garrett Cole to try and reconstruct that starting staff. As far as the bullpen is concerned, the bullpen did well at times in the regular season, but this series against Houston, they really, really let down in this series, and there's got to be somebody who has to be at fault for this. So that takes care of the Yankees. As far as the Mets are concerned, and yes, the Mets are making news too because they're looking for a manager right now. We already know that Joe Girardi and also Carlos Beltran are going to get second interviews for that manager's job. Carlos Beltran has made it loud and clear he wants that job. Of course, the safe choice would be Girardi. I mean, he's got 11 years of experience, and he's already won a championship with the Yanks. But the one thing that might be going against him, though, is his utter thirst for power. And also that there's going to be, there might be some communication issues between him and the players because he left the Yankees on pretty bad terms. Specifically the Yankee players. There was no communication whatsoever between Girardi and the players. Is this going to happen once again with the Mets? We're just going to have to wait and see. Beltran is a little intriguing because, for one, he was a terrific player back in the day, and he saw everything. If anything, he was kind of like a manager in the outfield when he was patrolling center field all those years. But that lack of experience as a manager that is sorely on his record is really has to be considered. So, as far as what's going to happen with the Mets manager's job, they do have a whole bunch of options. There's Beltran, there's Girardi. I understand that they may be looking at some guys in-house as well. So anything can happen as far as these guys are concerned. Now, as far as this upcoming World Series between the Astros and the Nationals, a lot are saying that this could be one of the best series out there. Make no mistake, the pitching staffs on each side are rock solid. The Astros are a tad better with Verlander and Cole and also the veteran Zach Greinke. Washington's staff is no slouch by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, think about it. Scherzer, Strasburg, the pitcher that they wound up getting from the Tigers not too long ago, which was Anibal Sanchez, who pitched okay in the playoffs so far. So there's going to be some major matchups that a lot of baseball fans are going to be wanting to see. I mean, what would you say to the prospect of Justin Verlander going up against, say, maybe Anthony Rendon, who's a National League Most Valuable Player of the Year candidate? Or how about seeing Steven Strasburg go up against a guy like George Springer or Jose Altuve or Carlos Correa or maybe Alex Bregman, who's a candidate for the American League's MVP award? There is so much to look at. Right now, if I'm a Nationals fan, I would definitely be worried about the week off that my team had, because sometimes these weeks off don't necessarily translate into better play. I mean, the rest is nice, but you also have to worry about that rust that's going to develop within a player. There's also the matter of the bullpen. The Astros were masterful against the Yankees during that LCS, and they were also masterful against the Rays in the division series. The Nationals have a couple of guys that they could pretty much roll with too. Sean Doolittle, of course, has become the closer for them, so it'll be interesting to see whose bullpen matches up better. Well, in my eyes, I think the Astros have the better bullpen. I also think that they have a slight edge with their starting trio, although the Nationals have that fourth starter that they could probably go to when times are tough. After Scherzer and Strasburg and Sanchez, they could definitely use that fourth starter that could probably give them a little bit of hope. As far as who do I like in this series? Houston's lineup is just a little bit better, and their starting staff is just a tad bit better. I'm picking the Astros to win in 6 games. Now, from the sublime to the ridiculous. Did anyone see that Giant game last night? Let me tell you, I know that this franchise is rebuilding right now, and Daniel Jones is a rookie, and he's prone to making mistakes. But there just comes a time when a team has to learn how to capitalize on opportunities. Not only did the Giants lose to the Cardinals yesterday, a beatable team, but it was the way that they lost. The constant giving up of sacks. The Giants gave up 8 sacks to that Cardinal defense, which has been very solid at the start of the season. They're almost halfway through the season, and they have I think it's a 3-3-1 or a 4-3-1 record. But that offensive line, I'm telling you, it's going to be the death of that team for the rest of the season. You just don't give up 8 sacks to an opposing defense. It's unfathomable. What about the turnovers that the Giants committed? What was it, 3 turnovers in yesterday's game, including a Daniel Jones interception on a play where, quite frankly, he should have eaten the ball instead of thrown it. But the constant lack of protection for Daniel Jones is just really defying any kind of logic on how to build a really good offensive line. And things are not going to get any better for the G-men after this, because now that they're 2-5, they have the Lions to close out the first half of the regular season, and then they have the Cowboys, a team that already beat their brains out on opening week of the season. I think it's just a matter of time before we can say that the Giants' season is pretty much about to come to an end, regardless of what the record is right now. As for the Jets have the Patriots tonight. The Jets are coming off that colossal victory over the Cowboys, which nobody saw coming. And by no coincidence, Sam Darnold came back from mononucleosis and had a really solid game for them. But now he's going up a step in class. I would say he's going up 10 steps in class, because he's going to be facing the Patriots with Tom Brady. And this is going to be the game where the Jets are really going to show what kind of team they are. They could be the team that showed a lot of courage and played hard and gave the Cowboys a lot of trouble in that victory, or they could be the team that wound up stinking it up in their previous 4 games, I should say. If the Jets are going to have any chance of winning this game, first things first, they got to do something to contain Brady. That's number one. Risk Risk it all by taking the passing game away, and maybe force him to go to the ground, which is not great, but can still be had somehow. They have a decent running game, but that team could be had. Number two, do something to try and attack that Patriots secondary, because even though the Patriots have two really good guys in their secondary, in the McCourty brothers, they can be picked on. And I would definitely get the ball to Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell has been touching the ball for about 80% of the plays that the Jets have run this season. Get the ball to Le'Veon Bell the most times possible. And in the event that the Patriots play for the run, do some kind of play action and make sure that Darnold gets the ball in the right spots. So let's see exactly what happens here. Elsewhere in the NFL, unfortunately, there was a major injury to one of their big stars, and that was Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes wound up dislocating his ankle yesterday, so now there's a strong possibility he's going to miss the rest of the season, which means Kansas City's title hopes might have gone up in smoke. As far as what else is going on in the NFL, it's good to see that the Saints are still a strong team, even with Drew Brees out for an extended time. And I think that the Chicago Bears might have learned that the hard way, because they wound up calling out the Saints, basically saying that Teddy Bridgewater was the weak link on that offense. Teddy Bridgewater, even though he has had little opportunity in the last year and a half, is a more than capable player. Keep in mind, he wound up leading Minnesota to a division title a few years ago. And he is also a very, very tough kid, too. Nothing phases that young man. He once played a season at Louisville with maybe 3 or 4 different injuries, yet he did not miss one single game. And so far, the stats have not been eye-popping, but Teddy Bridgewater has been masterful running that Saints offense. Don't be surprised if and when Drew Brees decides to call it a career, that they make Teddy Bridgewater the heir apparent as the point guard, so to speak, on the ground for the Saints. As far as what's going on elsewhere in the NFL, I think it's safe to say that the 49ers are for real. It didn't show in the Redskin game yesterday. They only won by a score of 9-0. But that 49er defense looked so rock solid, even against a deplorable Redskins team. Something tells me that the 49ers are going to be a team to watch for the second half of the season. And that Western Division in the NFC is going to look really, really strong. I still think the Rams can do something for the rest of the way. I think the Seahawks are still dangerous. And who in the world saw Arizona do anything? That's what happens when you have a kid like Kyler Murray as your quarterback. And also, that's what happens when you have the kid from Fordham, who basically shredded the Giants yesterday, just pounding the ball straight through the line. Dare I say that the Cardinals could be a playoff team? Maybe the second half of the season? I'm going to hold my tongue on that one, but that entire NFC West is loaded with really good teams featuring really good players. As far as that NFC South, right now, I think it's safe to say that the NFC South is definitely in the hands of the Panthers and the Saints. I mean, who saw Kyle Moore, or is it Kyle Murphy, who's Cam Newton's replacement at quarterback for the Panthers? The Panthers are 5-1, 6-1 now. 6-1 record after 7 games. The majority of that without Cam Newton as the quarterback. This just goes to show you what happens when you have a real competent backup who's in there for the franchise quarterback. And believe it or not, there are some rumors going on right now that maybe we might have seen the last of Cam Newton and that the backup could be the one to take over the rest of the way. I wouldn't go that far. Even as well as they've played this season, I definitely would not go that far. But the Panthers are definitely set. And also, you consider the fact that Christian McCaffrey has been playing out of his mind coming out of the backfield. The Panthers are still loaded offensively. Defensively, they have been so much better this year. As far as the NFC North is concerned, at least the Packers are still in fine form. They wound up blowing out the Raiders yesterday, and now you see what happens when you have a healthy Aaron Rodgers taking the snaps from center. The Panthers are now 6-1. Right now, I would say it's the Panthers and maybe the 49ers and maybe the Panthers who are the 3 teams to look at to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl coming in February. As far as the Eastern Division is concerned, that Eastern Division is anybody's guess. The Cowboys beat the Eagles yesterday, and it was pretty badly, too. The Eagles were shredded defensively. Not only that, but Ezekiel Elliott, whoever says that the role of a running back has officially died does not know what Ezekiel Elliott has done for the Cowboys. He was tremendous in last night's game. It's just like that gesture that he always does. If you keep feeding him, he's going to want more, and the more he gets the ball, the better the Cowboys are as a team. I still say the Cowboys are the better team in the NFC East in general. So right now, I would say the Cowboys, Panthers, Saints, and maybe the 49ers would be the 4 teams to look at as potential Super Bowl teams. As far as the AFC, no question the Patriots are head and shoulders above everybody else in that Eastern Division. Buffalo has played well. I'm not gonna hold off on anything there. But in a 1-on-1 situation against the Patriots will beat them every single time. At least the Bills have some improved play at quarterback with Josh Allen. So let's see if he can keep this up for the second half of the year. As far as the AFC North is concerned, the Ravens have surprised everyone except me because I knew all along that as long as Mark Jackson, as long as Lamar Jackson winds up taking the snaps from center for them, the Ravens are going to be a hell of a team to watch. And right now, it's the Ravens and then there's everybody else. The Browns have been a major disappointment. The Steelers, naturally, they've been falling by the wayside now that Ben Roethlisberger is out for the rest of the year. The Bengals stink, and that's just how it is for the AFC North. As for the AFC South, did anyone see the Colts emerge as a contender now that Andrew Luck is retired? Jacoby Brissett has surprised everyone with his play this year. I mean, it's not like he had the skill set. Not like he didn't have the skill set. Let me put it that way. It's not like he was some guy coming off the street just to take the snaps from center. He's got the athletic ability. His arm is okay, not totally powerful, but he's done enough to manage that offense to the point where the Colts now have a 5-2 record to lead that South Division. Tennessee's still a disappointment after the loss to the Colts yesterday. Jacksonville is another disappointment. And also, there's the Houston Texans, who continue to just teeter-totter between good and bad right now. As far as the AFC West, I think you could kiss the Chiefs' playoff hopes, much less Super Bowl hopes, goodbye, now that Patrick Mahomes is out indefinitely. I'm going to stop short of saying that he's out for the rest of the season because you never really know with dislocated ankles. But I'm going to say that he is out indefinitely. Let's put it that way. So right now, this gives the Chargers, and to a lesser extent the Raiders, a chance to maybe make a run and take over the AFC West. You can forget about Denver. Denver is dreadful. They still don't have a solution at quarterback. Joe Flacco has practically done nothing this season. It's just a matter of time before we see Drew Lock, their number one draft pick, emerge from the sidelines and take the snaps from center. Now, as far as what else is going on in the world of sports, I got some great news, and that's the fact that basketball season is starting. It officially begins tomorrow, and the Nets, if I'm not mistaken, are going to be starting their season at home, while the Knicks are going to start their season on the road. They've been talking a whole lot about who the NBA champion is going to be this year. Let me put it this way. Do not count out. Do not count out the Golden State Warriors, because it has gotten to a point where everybody and their mother is saying that just because there's no Klay Thompson, that he's out for the rest of the season, and that Kevin Durant switched teams, and that Sean Livingston retired, that the Warriors are going to be any less a contender. As long as Steph Curry and Draymond Green are still in the same starting five, and as long as Steve Kerr is still on the sidelines calling the signals, the Warriors will be a contender. Unfortunately, we have our first injury casualty of the season, and that's the fact that Zion Williamson's going to miss between 6 and 8 weeks because he had to undergo surgery for a torn meniscus. This injury actually goes back to his time at Duke, because if I'm not mistaken, I think he wound up hurting himself during the North Carolina game. And unfortunately, he did not return for the rest of the game. And even though he was still playing hard, you could see that there was still a little bit of discomfort that was really hindering him. So, unfortunately, this means that the Pelicans are going to be without their number one draft pick for probably the first 30 games of the season, which is going to be a major, major disappointment for the Pelicans and their fans, because they really wanted to see how he would roll with Drew Holiday and the newly signed J.J. Redick in their starting lineup. But then again, let's see exactly what happens. On the bright side, a whole bunch of players got themselves some pretty good contracts to start the season. Jaylen Brown re-signed with the Celtics for 4 years and $115 million. So did Buddy Hield with the Kings, Domantas Sabonis of the Pacers, and Dejounte Murray of the Spurs. And they all got some really fat contracts that they're going to be celebrating from now until it expires. So give these teams credit for giving them the security that they were hoping for. And also, Taurean Prince re-signed with the Nets. Prince got traded to the Nets by the Hawks over the summer, and he gets 2 years and $29 million. Then there's the other member of the Nets, Karis LeVert. He got 3 years and $52.5 million. One of the emerging big men in the game, Pascal Siakam, who's with the Raptors and helped them win a championship last year, re-signed for the next 4 years and $130 million. And then Jamal Murray and Ben Simmons each got 5-year extensions with their respective teams. Murray re-signed with the Nuggets for $170 million, and so did Ben Simmons with the Sixers. So now these guys can take care of their business on the court. As far as what we see happening in this Eastern Conference this year, well, let's put it this way. You're not going to hear anything about the Knicks because they're dreadful. They're dreadful because their roster is dreadful. They're dreadful because, quite frankly, who are you going to see as a defensive stopper that's going to help them down the stretch of games? The only one I see is maybe Mitchell Robinson. Who's going to be the go-to guy as their scorer? It can't just be Julius Randle. He needs help. And another thing. Can they even try to work a little bit harder to get themselves a superstar to make their way to the Big Apple? Because at this point, anybody that wants to play in New York wants to play for the Brooklyn Nets. That's why they got Kevin Durant, who's going to miss the whole season because of his surgery, and also Kyrie Irving, who really has to develop some chemistry with his new teammates. And that was the problem that he had when he played with the Celtics for 2 years. He was a bit of an isolationist with teammates in years past. So let's see exactly what the Nets can do. And as it turns out, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant are not the only guys that they've added for a possible title run this year. Although, if you were to ask me, I really don't see them winning an NBA title anytime in the near future. I mean, Durant and Irving are a big help, but I think they could use maybe 2 more superstars to put them in the starting lineup down the road. Now, the guys that they wound up getting to support them, they're no slouches. Their second-round draft pick, Nicholas Claxton, Henry Ellenson, the ex-Knick, DeAndre Jordan, the longtime star with the Clippers, who split last year between the Mavericks and the Knicks, David Nwaba, who's a pretty good defensive player, who bounced around with quite a few teams, Taurean Prince, like I mentioned, Garrett Temple, a good defensive guard who's bounced around with a whole bunch of teams. He's a seasoned veteran. There's also the ex-Knick and longtime Denver Nugget, Wilson Chandler. Hopefully, he can give them a little bit of shooting and scoring for future games. As far as where I see the Nets this year, between 45 and 50 wins at the most. I don't see them breaking 50 wins. I would see them between 45 and 50 victories. And it's going to be a real challenge for that team, especially in that entire Eastern Conference. And it's not just the Atlantic Division either. That Eastern Conference is going to be so tough that even a couple of the Johnny-come-latelys might have a chance to improve this season. Atlanta, not only do they have last year's number 1 draft pick, Trae Young, and their number 1 draft pick from a year before, John Collins, but there's also there's also their other number 1 pick, the Duke kid, Cameron Reddish, who's hooking up with quite a few young players here. Evan Turner is going to be making his mark with the Hawks. He's a good, experienced scorer who can add a little bit of versatility for them. DeAndre Hunter, who's a pretty decent big man. They also got Alan Crabb from the Nets in that Taurean Prince deal. And also Vince Carter, all 42 years of age, of Vince Carter is going to play one more season, which, if I'm not mistaken, would be an NBA record 23rd season. No, 22nd season. This would be his 22nd NBA season, and it would break an NBA record. God bless him, because only God knows what this guy's gone through with all of his knee injuries and all of the issues that he had in Toronto. It's painfully obvious that he has now learned his lesson and has emerged as a sage of a voice for that Hawks locker room. As far as everybody else, I still see Boston being dangerous. They've got a plethora of young players to work with. And they also brought in the one-time Nick Enes-Kanter to play center. The Celtics will be dangerous, but I would not see them as a title contender. Charlotte is going to be dreadful. No more Kemba Walker. He's being replaced now by the former Celtics guard, which is Terry Rozier. The Hawks are going to be a major train wreck this year. Chicago, they'll still be a train wreck, but at least they're building with some pretty decent young players over there, like Ryan Arcidiacono and Wendell Carter Jr. and Chris Dunn. Their number 1 draft pick, Kobe White, is there now. Lauri Markkanen as well. Zach LaVine, who is a tremendous athlete. They're still going to go through some growing pains, though. In fact, I would not be surprised if they won no more than 25 games this year. Cleveland, I don't even know what to make of Cleveland right now, to be quite honest with you. They didn't add anybody to their roster this past season, although they're not without any good players. There's Jordan Clarkson, Matthew Dellavedova, Brandon Knight. Kevin Love is still their best player, although there's been a lot of trade rumors about about Love, I should say. Larry Nance Jr., who's a very heady player. There's also Kevin Porter Jr., who they drafted out of USC last summer. It'll be interesting to see how he does with Colin Sexton in the same backcourt. That looks like a really explosive backcourt to watch. And of course, Tristan Thompson, who's been their center forever, for a long time. Let's see how the young players pan out, though. There's also the matter of the Pistons. Which Pistons team is going to show up? The Pistons teams that wound up recording a few blowout victories this past season, or the Pistons that wound up getting destroyed by the Bucks in the first round of the playoffs? You know, it's not like they're totally, completely, utterly mediocre. They still have Blake Griffin. There's also the matter of Andre Drummond, who's a terrific big man, Tim Frazier, Reggie Jackson, who's a very steady guard, Luke Kennard, their former number 1 pick. They also added Thon Maker, the former Milwaukee player, to give them some height on the front line. Derrick Rose has been signed to give them some scoring explosiveness coming out of the backcourt. So let's see exactly what the Pistons do for an encore this season. Then there's the Indiana Pacers. Hands down, if Victor Oladipo is 100% healthy, the Pacers are a championship contender. But if they're not, if he's not there, they'll be lucky if they're a first-round team, to be honest with you. And there's still the matter of whether he's going to be available at all this season, because he's still overcoming a torn ACL in his knee. And they also gave Sabonis that new contract. And, of course, there's the other players that they wound up having, such as the ex-St. John's kid, Jakar Sampson. It's good to see that he has a job now. Doug McDermott's there to give them some shooting help. I see Aaron Holiday and Justin Holiday have decided to former duo in Indiana. Of course, Aaron and Justin are brothers. And they also signed Malcolm Brogdon, which was a huge steal that they made from the Bucks. Now, let's see if Oladipo can return 100% healthy. Because if so, watch out. As far as Miami is concerned, this is year one post Dwayne Wade, and they wound up getting the superstar that they needed to try and make something happen this year, Jimmy Butler. So now Jimmy Butler is going to be probably commanding the locker room this time after commanding the locker room and rubbing a lot of people the wrong way in Minnesota. I would not think that he would try to do that in that locker room with Pat Riley still watching over the team. It's not like he doesn't have any horses there. Udonis Haslem has been there 16 years, and he's back for a 17th season. There's also Goran Dragic, who's their point guard. Bam Adebayo, who's a really athletic center. James Johnson is there as well. Derek Jones Jr., of course. Kelly Olynyk, who's a really underrated center. Justice Winslow, a very, very athletic guard who can give them some defense. The only missing suspect there is Dion Waiters, who's already been suspended for a time because of conduct detrimental to the team. Now, Milwaukee won the North Division last year, and a lot of people thought that they were about to make a title run. They fell short against the Raptors in the Eastern Conference Finals, but I get the feeling this team is now loaded to make a championship run. When you think of the Bucks, you think of Giannis Antetokounmpo, a guy who has been murder on the rest of the league this entire offseason, this entire past season. Now he has his brother Thanasis to work with in the front line. Can you imagine those two on the same front line? Giannis offensively and Thanasis defensively? I shudder to think what's going to happen with these guys. And there's also a couple of the other guys that they wound up bringing in. Wesley Matthews, they decided to bring back after signing him off the scrap heap. The Lopez twins are now together. Kyle Korver has joined the Bucks now. That's a big add. Dante DiVincenzo, who's a very, very steady former number one pick who played with Villanova, helped him win a championship. Pat Connaughton is a really solid player. Eric Bledsoe, a very good point guard. I think Milwaukee is going to have a lot to talk about this year. Now, as far as Orlando is concerned, Orlando made the playoffs last year and kind of surprised some people. They wound up getting beaten. They wound up getting their brains beaten in by the Raptors, who eventually won the title, but do not sell the Magic short. They've got a plethora of young players who they could go to at any time. The big question with the Magic is Markelle Fultz going to be injured? They wound up, is Markelle Fultz going to be injured all season, or is he going to be 100% healthy? I saw that he was working out with the team, and they're hoping that he could keep his good health and also develop a consistent jumper, excuse me, so he can make a contribution to the Magic this year. There's also the matter of Aaron Gordon, one of their best scorers, probably the best scorer that they have, and one of the best players in the game. There's also Jonathan Isaac, who's an outstanding defensive forward. Melvin Frazier Jr., who is another solid pickup that they made in the draft last year from Tulane. Michael Carter-Williams they now have in their backcourt. Their former number one pick, Mo Bamba. Al-Farouq Aminu, who made his way over from Orlando. I think he's going to give them some really good defense on the front line. I think Orlando can really surprise some people this year. Maybe get to 45 wins for the season. Who knows? There's also Philadelphia. The Sixers were devastated by the Raptors last year, thanks to that jumper, that last minute jumper at the buzzer from Kawhi Leonard, which didn't seem to want to bounce around or stop bouncing around the rim. But let me tell you, the Sixers are another team that should be considered as very, very dangerous. They made some really, really important acquisitions, I should say. The former Celtic, Al Horford, is now going to be the starting center. Trey Burke is going to give them some time coming off the bench. There's also another ex-Knick, Kyle O'Quinn, who's going to give them some time coming off the bench. Mike Scott is going to come off the bench as well. He's the former Atlanta player. The X factor in this whole thing is whether Ben Simmons is going to develop a consistent jump shot. There's a difference between having it in practice and having it in a game. Let's see what happens when he brings his jumper onto the floor in a big, big spot. Of course, Toronto, last year's champions, do not have Danny Green or Kawhi Leonard anymore, but they're not without some really good players, though. Keep in mind, the guy that they had last year as their point guard, Kyle Lowry, he's returned. Pascal Siakam got himself a new contract. Fred VanVleet, who played some very important minutes in the playoffs, the entire playoffs for the Raptors, he's going to be back this season. They even brought in Stanley Johnson, the former Detroit Piston, for some help on the front line. Serge Ibaka is back to play center. And they also brought in the ex-Net, Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, to give them some scoring. So let's see how the Raptors do this season, the year after Kawhi Leonard left. As for the Washington Wizards, I couldn't even begin to tell you. Granted, Bradley Beal has a new contract, but there's also the matter of how John Wall is going to be now that he's coming off injury. They did add a couple of young players, though. First off, they got a really underrated center, Rui Hachimura from Japan, who played for Gonzaga. He wound up being a top 10 pick. There's also the matter of Admiral Schofield, a kid who was born and raised in the United Kingdom. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he played at Tennessee this past season. Let's see if he can add some stuff for the Wizards. And also, Isaiah Thomas wound up finding himself another team. Now, granted, these are some really important acquisitions, but let me tell you, after Bradley Beal and John Wall and maybe Isaiah Thomas, they also added Moritz Wagner from the Lakers in that big deal that they consummated. Let's see exactly how these newcomers do. I don't see anything concrete to say that they're going to be doing anything this year. So that's that. Now, as far as the Western Conference is concerned, all eyes are on the Lakers and the Clippers, and to a lesser extent, the Warriors. The Lakers, as far as I'm concerned, are back in business for a championship. Now that they have Anthony Davis to go along with LeBron James, it's going to be really, really fun seeing those two work together this coming season. And they also happen to bring back Dwight Howard for a second tour of duty. And also they have Danny Green, who they brought in from the Raptors as a major, major shooting upgrade. And I see that they also brought in Giannis Antetokounmpo's other brother, Kostas Antetokounmpo, to play on the front line. They also re-signed Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. They also re-signed Rajon Rondo. They re-signed JaVale McGee. I also saw that they brought in DeMarcus Cousins. Unfortunately, he's going to miss the season because he wound up getting hurt. But still, the Lakers, I'm not sure if they're going to be a title contender, a real title contender, but they're going to be a lot of fun to watch this year. Maybe they'll get to the first and second round. Let's put it that way. As far as the Clippers are concerned, I think you could look at the Clippers, the same Los Angeles Clippers who could never even get out of their own way 30 years ago as a championship contender. Now they have Paul George, who they brought in from Oklahoma City. They also have the former St. John's player, Maurice Harkless, who spent, I think, the last 8 years playing for Portland. And, of course, the biggest free agent ticket to make his way over here, Kawhi Leonard. Now he gets a chance to be the man on a particular team. There's also the issue of the sixth man of the year, Lou Williams. There's also other such solid players like JaMychal Green and Patrick Beverley, Montrezl Harrell, who is a really strong defensive forward, Jonathan Motley as well. So let's see how the Clippers do with this new look roster. As for the Warriors, I still say the Warriors are a championship contender in spite of the fact that there is no more KD, no Klay Thompson for one whole season because of injury, and also no other superstar players to be joining Steph and Draymond. They did add D'Angelo Russell, though, and D'Angelo Russell, I think, is going to give them a lot of punch in that backcourt. And they also brought in the former Sacramento King, Willie Cauley-Stein, to help out in the middle. So this looks like a really intriguing team that the Warriors have coming up. As far as Oklahoma City, the only superstar that they have right now is Chris Paul. And we don't even know how long he's going to last there. Although, give him credit for trying to maintain some kind of professionalism, because he's already said that he's going to be there for his team this year for as long as it takes. They do have some pretty serviceable guys. Of course, Steven Adams, who's a good defensive center. Hamidou Diallo, who's a very athletic player. Terrence Ferguson, a good young guard who can provide a lot of versatility at two different spots. Danilo Gallinari, who can give them shooting. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who they got in the George deal. Mike Muscala also, who has made his way around for quite a few teams in the last 6 years. Of course, there's Andre Roberson and also Dennis Schroeder, two really serviceable guys that can help off the bench. Now, as far as the other teams are concerned, Dallas is welcoming in the era of Kristaps Porzingis and Luka Doncic. If Kristaps Porzingis can keep himself healthy for a whole season, the Mavericks could be a playoff team. Maybe they'll break 500 this year. And they also added some pretty decent players as well. Justin Jackson, the former Sacramento King, DeLon Wright as well. Seth Curry, who's Steph's brother, is back with the team for another year. The former Villanova player, Jalen Brunson, is now a Maverick. So maybe the Mavericks can break 500 this year. As for the other two Texas teams, the Houston Rockets, now the Rockets have Russell Westbrook to go along with James Harden. And their work together in the same backcourt is going to be really interesting to watch because, as we all know, those are two alpha males who very rarely like to give up the ball. So it's going to be really interesting to see who throws the first punch as far as wanting to get the ball is concerned. And I see Houston being a 45 to 50, maybe a 50-win team this season. Whether they compete for a championship is anybody's guess. At least they have Tyson Chandler to provide some defense in the middle. And there's also Eric Gordon, who they brought in at the guard spot. The only problem is Gerald Green is going to miss the whole season because he got hurt. So that's going to be a major, major loss for them. And at least Nene is back to try and give them some strength defensively. As far as the Memphis Grizzlies are concerned, no more Mike Conley, but this is year one of the Ja Morant era. And they also brought in the Japanese forward, Yuta Watanabe, to help out a little bit. And they also have Jaren Jackson Jr., so those are three really good young guys that they can build with for the future. Ja Morant is going to be an exciting player. As far as Minnesota is concerned, still solid with really good young players. Karl Anthony Towns, Andrew Wiggins, who a lot of people see as the weak link, but I still think can be a really decent player. Gorgie Dang, who can provide some defense. Keita Bates-Diop, who can also provide defense. But this year, the Timberwolves are missing one or two more players that they should need to try and get them defensive stops and some scoring opportunities. As far as the New Orleans Hornets, we mentioned that Zion Williamson is going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks because of surgery. They did add a couple of really decent players, though. Derek Favors, who was with Utah for 8.5 years, and also J.J. Redick, who was going to give them some really, really strong shooting opportunities. Once Zion Williamson is back, if the Pelicans can maintain the course, I think they might be a playoff team. As far as Phoenix is concerned, Phoenix is still rebuilding with guys like DeAndre Ayton and Mikal Bridges, and also they have one of the best scorers in the league right now, Devin Booker, who already has a 70-point game to his credit. They're still rebuilding. Sacramento, I also feel, is still rebuilding. Utah, I would say, is still a major player, specifically with them having Donovan Mitchell in the backcourt and Rudy Gobert at center, and Mike Conley now is their everyday point guard. I think he's a step up from Ricky Rubio, if you ask me. I think the Jazz can probably go to the Western Conference semifinals again. San Antonio is still going to be dangerous as long as Greg Popovich is there and LaMarcus Aldridge is still the number one scoring option. There's also the matter of Marco Bellinelli, who can give them really good shooting. DeMar DeRozan is back for a second year. Rudy Gay is back for another year. These guys are going to be really, really dangerous to watch. And Portland. There's also the matter of Portland. Portland surprised a lot of people when they went to the Western Conference Finals last year. But let me tell you, as long as Damian Lillard is still in the backcourt and C.J. McCollum is still in the backcourt with him, they are going to be really, really dangerous to watch. I think that the Trailblazers can win maybe 45 games this season. So that's going to do it for us, folks. So let me say thanks to Kenny Graham on the other side of the glass, and thanks to you guys for watching at home. For everyone here, I'm Jamie. We hope you had a wonderful Columbus Day, and we hope to see you again next time. Good night, everyone.